Why do we keep having the same argument in our marriage? I know we've had the same argument, right? In our 30 years, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I know we found ourselves in many situations and many arguments that seem to be repeating over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think that some of them no longer repeat themselves.
Yeah, I would think so. Well, this recurring conflict is a sign that there's a deeper relationship pattern that's been established. And so while the topic can often change, the tension stays the same. You might find one person is, pushing the relationship, trying to push harder and harder to resolve this conflict, while the other person might tend to shut down. But you both leave feeling frustrated, misunderstood, and emotionally exhausted. But I think many couples, they think the fight is just about money or parenting, or maybe it's an in-law issue, or maybe an intimacy issue. But it's actually something that runs deeper. It's a relationship pattern that we have to recognize, or the history just tends to repeat itself.
Yeah. I can think of one example of a recurring issue, which was the topic of homeschooling our children. You remember that? It
I
was
do.
back in Atlanta, Georgia, and Lilburn to be exact. And you felt so strongly that we had to homeschool our kids and that it was the right thing to do for the children, for the family. I just wasn't there. And so when we had these conversations about this is what we need to do, it typically ended up in a lot of frustration, misunderstanding, and disappointment. I think what finally began to change was realizing that we slowed the conversation down enough to really try to get beneath the surface and say, why do we keep having the same conflict? What's going on here? And through talking and really listening to understand one another, we began to understand that the issue wasn't about homeschooling. The real issue was how were we going to parent and raise our children and give them a foundation that would sustain them for their lifetime.
Right.
That was the real issue underneath the surface. And once we got to the heart of the matter, remember the peace kind of entered the room, the tension dropped. And I think it was in that moment we realized, wow, we actually want the same thing. We want to give our children a strong foundation. We want them to be rooted in Christ. We want them to follow Jesus. We want the same thing. We're on the same side.
Right.
Now we can partner and begin having conversations about how do we actually achieve that so that we both feel good.
Right.
And we started collaborating. We started having different communication, different conversations, and that allowed us to explore different options. And we finally found one that worked for both of us.
Right, exactly. So while I thought the solution was homeschooling, it actually ended up being a combination of things over the course of their education, but the main thing was Christian school.
Yeah,
And so that actually worked for us.
it worked for us.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is that we don't repeat arguments, we repeat patterns. Beneath the surface of these issues are usually bigger topics. They could be expectations that we might have that aren't being met. They could be wants that or desires. They could be other things that are going on underneath the surface. And what we want to be able to do through this podcast is explore that and begin to recognize that these repetitive cycles will keep pulling us back into the same experience until we actually begin to change and recognize the pattern.
With lots of couples that we've worked with over the last, I guess, 15 plus years, there's a few key things that I believe are really important that we try to emphasize with them. And one of them is your relationship is not broken. That is so important because I think many couples think a lot of times that it's them, that their relationship might be the only one that is going through this issue or whatever it is that they're going through, and it is just not fixable. But your relationship's not broken.
Yeah.
There
I
is
mean,
there is a
think
solution.
I agree. I mean, if you think about the fact that you have two people, actually two powerful people coming together from very different backgrounds and coming into this union to become one and really try to figure out how to do life together when we're still individuals. And the idea isn't to sacrifice who we are. It's to figure out how do we bring two people that are very different into one and create harmony, connection. Yes, there are going to be moments where it's rough. But we want to figure out how to do is make sure we go through those seasons and those challenges of life, staying connected, and that we come through stronger without hurt and disappointment and creating more tension in the relationship than we do peace.